Mingfei is a disgusting loser with no friends, living all day in his cave-like room playing his favorite game. He's proud to be one of the best players on this server. Right now, he's playing a match against his best friend, whom he met online, and is smashing the keyboard like the spoiled brat he is. After Mingfei won the match, and his friend said goodbye. Poor Mingfei got sad when he found no one else online to satisfy his urge to play. He opened his favorite catfish's profile, and before he could drool on his crusty keyboard, he got a challenge request from another strong player named Nano for a one-on-one match. As soon as he saw the request, he immediately accepted, and the match began. When the match started, Mingfei was shocked by the player's skills. It was much harder than he expected. So, Mingfei used unbelievable hand speed and mouse movements you've never seen before, and stood up from his chair. But just then, Nono sends him a private message, predicting his next move. Sure enough, he loses the duel, and his body freezes in shock. After Mingfei sits there, wondering who this player is and how they managed to defeat him like that, he checks their profile for more information. Mingfei discovers it's empty, so he logs out and stops playing. The scene changes, and we learn that the person who defeated him was a girl named Chenmo. She is an A-rank member of the Dragon Slayers group and studies at Castle College, but she uses the alias Nono. Nono is in her car in the city with some of her friends from Castle College, and they discover that the college's principal is interested in Mingfei because he has the potential to be an S-rank student. However, Matong doesn't understand why, which is why she challenged Mingfei to a duel to see what all the fuss was about. She's annoyed that Mingfei received a scholarship from the Castle College principal, as she feels he doesn't belong in a school like that, especially after she beat him in a one-of-own match. Her friends are also confused and ask Nono to find out more about him. So, she accesses Castle College's AI system, named Eva. Eva welcomes Nono, who starts asking questions about Mingfei's life, hobbies, and personal interests. She discovers that Mingfei has no friends at school, his existence is almost non-existent, and he only likes to play video games. His parents also abandoned him when he was young, and he now lives with his aunt and uncle, who bother him all day, along with their mean cousin, Mingzhe. Mingzhe likes to provoke Mingfei by pretending to be a girl online and befriending him in the game for revenge. His aunt and uncle yell at him to start making money soon, or no college will accept him, and he'll become a jobless failure with no future. Nono also discovers that Mingfei has a crush on a girl at school named Chen Wenwen, but Nono wants to know more about his dreams and ambitions, and where he sees himself in the future. When she searches for his life's dreams, Eva informs her that all he wants is to be a simple worker at a newsstand to earn enough money to upgrade his games and stay online as long as possible. After hearing this, Nono is shocked, and her friend almost swerves out of the lane because they're all stunned at how the principal wants him at the college when he's just a lonely introvert who dreams of imaginary girls. After they kick him out of the house to get some groceries, he passes by the mailbox and asks the mailman if there are any letters for him. He receives a letter informing him of his rejection from the international university, but there's another letter accepting him into Castle College. The letter states that Professor Garion will be his supervisor and that he sent this letter specifically to him. He thinks it must be a dream and tries to wake himself up, but it's real, a genuine letter. The boy runs home to tell his family. When they read the letter, they think it's a joke. His aunt loses her temper, believing he must have forged a fake letter, and tells him he's just a pathetic little kid. His cousin Mingzhe says it's impossible for Mingfei to get into that college because the people who go there are usually human hybrids or born half human, half mage, so how could he get into a place like that? Mingfei tells them all about a guy named Zihang, a human hybrid famous for being one of the strongest students in all of Castle College. Mingfei says no one can compare themselves to someone like Zihang, but at that moment, Mingfei enters a dreamlike state as his family argues with him. In this dream, a helicopter flies up to their apartment, and a man descends from it, who turns out to be Zihang himself. He invites Mingfei to join the academy, even bowing before him, calling him sir, and saying they've been waiting for him for a long time. But he wakes up from the dream and returns to reality, thinking that maybe his family is right and someone is playing a prank on him. He starts to walk away, but just then, the device inside the letter begins to ring. Its HR informs him that the person on the line wants to interview Mingfei tomorrow regarding his recent acceptance into Castle College, and his whole family's faces are filled with shock. Later, Mingfei talks to his best friend online, who seems to be the only one happy about the news and gives him some advice on how to present himself in the interview. The next day, Mingfei arrives at the building in the main city for the interview. When he he arrives, he's surprised to see some of his classmates from his old school. It seems they also received the same letter and are shocked that Mingfei got an acceptance letter too. One of the students is his old crush, Chen Wenwen. As all the students wait for their interviews, Mingfei asks Wenwen how she got here and gives her some confidence, telling her not to be nervous, and that she's a great speaker and the top of all her classes in high school. After she thanks him, the interviewer calls them in one by one, and soon, it's Mingfei's turn. Mingfei spent the previous day repeating interview questions and answers in his head, so he wouldn't mess up. But when the examiner asks him the questions, they ask completely random things, like if he believes in aliens. This totally threw him off because he expected something normal, like where he grew up and his life story. However, one of the other interviewers who was writing down the answers told him he wasn't interested in his life, and all he wanted was for him to answer these simple questions because they were very important. Afterwards, Mingfei told the man that he did believe in aliens, and that every night he looks at the sky and stares at the stars. He told them that the universe is vast, and there must be life beyond Earth on other planets somewhere in the galaxy. After these random questions, he gets up and leaves, apologizing to the examiners and saying he must have applied to the wrong college, and walks out of the building. As he's walking outside, we see a man burst into the building and ask the two examiners about Mingfei and how the interview went. But they tell the man, who turns out to be Professor Guderian, that Mingfei just left the interview after the first question. The man goes crazy, telling them they should have begged him to stay and that they must call his phone and bring him back. But the interviewer is confused why the professor is so angry that he left. On his way home, Mingfei sees Wenwen, who asks him if he wants to go to the graduation party together, and Mingfei agrees. Mingfei wishes he could marry Wenwen someday, spend the rest of his days with her, live somewhere in the city, and settle down, because he now thinks he blew his chance of getting into Castle College. But when he gets home, his aunt tells him that a man named Guderian called them, and that Mingfei passed the interview and can enroll in Castle College. The next day, they return to the building to talk with Professor Guderian, and this time, his aunt, uncle, and cousin go with him because they need to discuss his studies. His aunt immediately wants to know about the money and where he will be staying. The teacher tells her that his scholarship will give him 36,000 in his bank account every year and he will sleep in the academy. After hearing this large amount, his aunt begs him to join and tells the professor he will attend immediately. The professor tells them that the reason they want Mingfei is because he has a rare talent that occurs once every 100 years stored within his soul. But this confuses his aunt and uncle. But then, he pulls out a letter written by Mingfei's mother and father, and it turns out they were honor students at Castle Academy. He gives him the letter. Mingfei is in shock because he always thought they abandoned him for no reason. But all this time, they were studying at the school. He excuses himself from the table and goes into the bathroom, crying as he reads the letter's contents. His mother explains what happened to them and why she left him that night, and that she has always loved him and he is the only thing she truly cares about. But because of her bloodline, she had to enroll in Castle College. She also told the professor that when her son Mingfei grows up, she wants to ask the college headmaster to give him a scholarship, and just wishes him a good life. At that moment, Nono approaches him while he's crying inside the girls' bathroom and tells him he should leave the building if he's going to cry like that, and she walks him back to the meeting. When he returns, the professor asks him what he thinks about enrolling in the college, but he says he needs more time. But upon hearing this decision, Nono tells them all that the reason for Mingfei's hesitation is a girl he has a crush on and doesn't want to leave. This shocks Mingfei, who is completely surprised she could know about Chen Wenwen, but she explains that she just guessed it by chance. But then, she reveals her true identity when she says something she had told him in the doubles match in the game that night, and he immediately remembers and discovers that Modong is actually Nono and the same person who managed to defeat him in the game. Afterwards, he sits on a rooftop and thinks about how she knows so much about his private affairs. He starts to take out his phone to confess his feelings to Chen Wenwen. As he does, Nono appears behind him and startles him. She tells him that Eva, the AI, can easily locate him and that she came here on Professor Guderian's orders to try and convince him to join the academy one last time. But Mingfei hesitates again because of his love for Wenwen, telling Nono that he loves her and can't leave her without telling her his feelings. But Nono tells him that she knows Wenwen doesn't love him back, and that he's going to ruin his chance of joining the academy for someone who doesn't even like him. But he still thinks he has a chance because she asked him to go to the party with her. After Nono tries to explain all the reasons he's making bad decisions in his life, she tells him that if he doesn't join now, it will affect him forever. The next day, Mingfei meets Chen Wenwen for the graduation party tomorrow. and they buy some things for the party. While they're out, Nono approaches him again and advises him to leave Wenwen immediately. She tells him the professor is leaving tonight, so he has to make his decision before then. But Mingfei had already planned to confess his love to Wenwen at the graduation party, so he refuses her offer again. Afterwards, we see Mingfei practicing his confession in front of the mirror for a long time to be ready for tomorrow. And because Mingfei is broke, he picks flowers from the ground to give to Wenwen. When the party is about to start, his friend Xiao brings him a suit. After putting on the suit, he heads to the main graduation stage and greets two other students also wearing suits that Xiao had rented. After Mingfei plans his next move and decides to go on stage with the flowers to confess his love, Xiao suddenly comes out with flowers in his hand and confesses his love to Chen Wenwen. This whole time, Xiao was pranking him, and what's worse is that Chen Wenwen was in on the plan. She also expresses her feelings for Xiao in front of Mingfei, and they start dating right then and there. Mingfei stands in complete silence, feeling betrayed by his close friend and completely heartbroken, while Mingfei is feeling deep sadness and rejection. Nono suddenly appears in a beautiful dress, stunning his classmates as she elegantly walks down the graduation party stairs. Nono approaches Mingfei with her assistance and claps her hands to signal the girls to change his clothes. Then, the beautiful Nono takes Mingfei's arm, telling Wenwen and Xiao that Mingfei has more important things to do than be here, which annoys Xiao. Nono tells them both that this is the last time they will see this version of Mingfei, and she walks out of the building. Nono tells him it's okay to look back at her one last time, but Mingfei refuses and doesn't look back like an alpha. After they leave, they drive for a long time until the car runs out of gas. They stop somewhere to wait for the tank to be filled, and here Nono tells Mingfei that she can't disappoint the headmaster or the professor by failing to get Mingfei to join Castle Academy. But Mingfei thanks Nono for not giving up on him and decides he wants to join Castle College. Nono informs Eva of his decision, and then Eva welcomes Mingfei for the first time, gives him all his current stats, and designates him an S-class student with a student ID code and all the information about the college. At that moment, Nono crowns Mingfei and names him king of the college, even though he hasn't done anything yet, so he is surprised by the news. She tells him that people have been crowned before him, like his parents, but some people would kill for that crown and might die for it. Nevertheless, she submits to him and tells him that she will be his personal assistant and will guide him with the knowledge she has learned over the years of studying at the college, and he gladly accepts her as a friend. Eve saves all of Mingfei's information on the system for his use, which alerts all the other students at Cassell College that the king has arrived. A few days later, we see Mingfei at the airport, asking a man for directions to the CC subway station. The man mistakes him for a beggar and says he should contact his country's embassy for accommodation and financial support. Mingfei looks frustrated and blames the woman who directed him to the place and claims there's a subway station at the airport, which makes him think he was misinformed. He decides to get a burger with the little money he has left, but the eatery's attendants mistake him for a beggar and say he is not allowed. Moments later, some beggars wave at him and call him their friend. Following this, a young man walks up to him and introduces himself as Finger von Frings. He then requests that he borrow the money with him so he can get himself some coke. Mingfei refuses and thinks he is about to be tricked. Von Frings notices the subway card Mingfei is holding and immediately informs him that they are brothers, because they attend the same school. Mingfei refuses to believe it at first, but Von Frings brings out a similar card and shows him. Lu Mingfei seems elated to see a schoolmate, so Von Frings takes the money from him. Later that day, the two can be seen waiting at the airport. Von Frings informs Mingfei, who is a new student, that he is the most familiar face in the school because he keeps repeating his classes. He further explains that the train they are waiting for gives priority to students with a high rank, and those with a low rank have to wait till whenever the train decides to show up. He also informs him that their school is located in a hidden location in the mountains, hence why they have to use the train to get there. Mingfei tries to ask more questions, but he already fell asleep, so Mingfei follows suit. Mingfei, while sleeping, dreams of people holding torches and running for their lives and jumping off a cliff. In the dream, he wakes up at the airport and sees a little boy who says he is his brother and asks him if he is ready for a great apocalypse that will hit Earth. Mingfei ignores what he said and offers him money for food instead, but the boy declines and calls him pathetic for being so kind even after many years. Mingfei wakes up and realizes it was a dream. At this moment, a weird-looking man comes to the scene and informs them that their train will arrive soon. Mingfei tells the man his name, and immediately, the man goes crazy and excited and informs him that he is an S-rank student everyone has been waiting for, and that the principal himself will pick him up. Von Frings also joins in the excitement and tells him he has the same rank as the principal, and if he has swiped his card, the school would have immediately sent a train to pick him up. Mingfei also seems shocked to learn this because he wasted his time all day. Mingfei inserts his card in a card reader machine and immediately, the airport lights up, and a secret passage to a subway station is revealed. They walk down to the station and on their way, Von Frings says he expects nothing less from an S-rank student. At the subway station, Mingfei gets scared by people who look like zombies, but Von Frings tells him they are just actors for the scene. The train arrives, and Professor Guderian jumps out, hugs Mingfei, and says they have been expecting him. On the way to Cassell College, the professor made Mingfei sign a confidential document. He sends Finger out and proceeds to tell Mingfei what to expect in the school. He informs Mingfei that the mission of the school is to teach students about dragons and how to slay them. Mingfei doubts the professor's format and assumes he has a mental issue. At this moment, Mingfei falls into a trance and he sees the boy from earlier. The boy informs him that everything he has heard about the dragons is true. The boy narrates that the original ancestor of the dragon Raja, the Black Dragon Emperor Nidhogg, was killed thousands of years ago on his own throne, and the mountain, which was filled with ice and the men who killed the dragon, put his massive corpse on the top of the mountain. He adds that the day he died was what brought about what they now call the New Age, and the people celebrated when the dragon died. Mingfei asks the boy if he is related to the dragon, but he says no. After returning to his normal state, a man named Masashi Toyama comes in to show Mingfei proof that dragons exist. They show him a dragon scale and are told to test the durability, but this is not enough to convince Mingfei. They decide to show him a baby dragon that was found in 1796. The baby dragon has been in a sleeping state since it was found. Mingfei goes closer to the dragon and it suddenly starts moving. The dragon tries to break out of the glass container but fails. The baby dragon has been in a sleeping state. It eventually goes back to his sleeping state. The professor says the Mingfei bloodline must have awoken the dragon. He adds that they are lucky to have changed the nano container holding the dragon the previous year, or it would have been disastrous if the dragon escaped. Moments later, they arrive at their destination and the professor offers to show Mingfei the school and officially welcomes him to Cassell College. Mingfei could not help but marvel at the beauty and size of his new college. The professor and Mingfei walk through the hallway, and the professor informs him that research has shown them that there are many high-level dragons sleeping across China, and that is why a few years back the schools decided to make China obligatory. While they were at this, Mingfei could not help but notice that there were no students around the campus and ask why. The professor realizes his mistake and quickly urges Mingfei to get down and take cover. On that day, there is a celebration in the school called Liberty Day, in which two groups in the school, the Lionheart Society headed by Chu Zhuheng, and the Student Union, headed by Caesar Gattuso, compete head-to-head in a war game. At this moment, students emerge from different angles and a battle begins as they take out one another with guns. In the process, Professor Gundarin gets shot and falls to the ground. A few moments later, the teams have already eliminated one another except for their leaders and a sniper from each group. To determine the winner, the two leaders Zhihong and Caesar face off in a one-on-one fight and a fight ensues. Mingfei, who seems terrified and watches all these from afar, is confronted by Nono the sniper for the Student Union. In the process, Nono gets shot by the opposing team sniper, and this enrages Mingfei. He falls into a trance and sees the little boy urging him to punish them for their sins. He picks up a rifle, shoots the sniper in the head, fires a devastating shot at both Chu Zhihong and Caesar, and takes them out in the process. While he is wallowing in his sadness, he hears the school alarm system go off and immediately, some Red Cross girls come rushing out toward the fallen students. They start injecting them with what seems like an antidote, and immediately they get back up on their feet. At this moment, another teacher, Professor Manstein, comes to the scene and starts complaining about how expensive what the students are doing is. He faces Mingfei and asks why a freshman is participating in such a game, while Mingfei is trying to figure out what is going on. To his surprise, Professor Gundarin wakes up beside him and this scares him, thinking he is a ghost. Professor Gundarin assures him that he is alive, and he did not just come back from the dead. Gundarin explains that the bullets are fake, and it was laced with sedatives and fake blood, so he hits himself with the bullet to demonstrate, and he immediately loses consciousness again. All the students wake up, and Professor Manstein threatens to report them to the principal, which he did. The group leaders walk up to him and inform him that they did not break any rules, but Manstein replies that the principal will be the judge of it. He places the principal on a call, and explains that the cost of renovation for the damages caused by the students is way expensive. To his disappointment, the principal shrugs him off, urges the student to have fun, and that the school will pay for any damages. He then apologizes to the students for not being there with them, but promises to be there next time. After hearing all this, the students all cheer in excitement. The principal then requests to speak with Mingfei. He welcomes him to the school and then teases him about knocking out two A-rank students on his first day in the school, but he says he is not surprised because he is an S-rank student himself. Following this, Professor Manstein advises him to head back to his dormitory before the students rip him apart. This is because he knocks out their leader and they are angry at him. At the principal's location, he can be seen talking with another man whose name is Mance. The principal recalled an incident that occurred 8 years back and how the students were wiped out. The principal talks about how they need to train the students and get them ready for battle, but Mans argues that what they need is a prodigy that will help in battle. The duo concludes that Chu and Caesar are strong, but they are now considering Mingfei also. They decide to change the discussion and talk about a Hills operation that was slated for the next day. Mans informs the principal that Yishang and Aki are ready to dive into the water, but they need to be careful so they don't wake the sleeping dragon there. Back in the school, Mingfei gets to his dormitory and discovers that Finger von Fring is his roommate. Finger informs him that for winning the competition, he is now an object of hatred for both the Student Union and the Lion Heart Society. Finger then offers to give him a tour of the school, and he agrees. On their way, Finger shows him various parts and faculties of the school. He takes him to a part of the school where a magical ability called Yanling is studied, and he also shows him a building where Professor Manstein's father lives and uses his Yangling to create a barrier that protects the school. He explains to him that there are different Yanling skills. While they were at this, a student loses control of his Yanling skill and creates a water monster, but a teacher steps in before the monster goes on a rampage. The situation gives Mingfei a vision, and he finds himself in front of a half-withered tree. Mingfei asks Finger what the tree signifies, and he explains that it is called the World Tree, and the Black Emperor Dragon was defeated underneath the tree. He adds that the tree is the symbol of Castle College. At this moment, Professor Gundarin finds the two standing in front of the tree and rushes toward them. He requests that Mingfei follow him back to the dormitory. In the dormitory, Professor Gundarin gives Mingfei his student ID and informs him that he is to participate in a 3E test, which is a test conducted for newly admitted students, and he tells him that he will be sent home if he fails. Gundarin adds that the test will allow them to evaluate his rank, and he expects that it will be easy for him. Professor Gundarin brings out a music box and narrates how a man recorded the dragonic sound made by the Black Dragon Emperor centuries of years ago with the music box, and the sound that was made by the dragon is now known as the Imperium, Yangling. Professor Gundarin proceeds to play the sound and asks Mingfei to decipher what it says, but he falls asleep and feels nothing in the process. Because of this, Professor Gundarin believes that Mingfei's human genes have surprised his dragon genes. Following this, the professor remembers something and rushes out of the room before Mingfei can say Jack. Finger rushes to his computer and posts on the school news network that Mingfei did not react to the Imperium. Following this, Mingfei seems worried about the test, but Finger calms him down and volunteers to help him cheat to pass the 3E test. Following this, the group leaders Jihong and Caesar all find out from the news network that Mingfei did not resonate with the Imperium. Professor Gundarin rushes towards the library and calls Professor Manstein to meet him there so they can figure out the reason for Mingfei's unresponsiveness to the Imperium. They go through the history books and come to the conclusion that Mingfei comes from the bloodline of the White Dragon Emperor who challenged Nidhogg. During the battle, the White Emperor lost to the Black Emperor, and all his descendants were buried with him. Following this, Manstein tells Gundaran that if there is any possibility that Mingfei is a descendant of the White Emperor, then he needs to be subjected to further research. However, Gundaran shows his displeasure by saying that he doesn't want Mingfei to become a lab rat, because he is a good kid and because he recruited him. Manstein responds that they will treat him as humanly as possible, and he won't say a word of what they've discovered to anyone if he passes the 3E test, but if not, he will report all to the school authority. Later that night, a mysterious man summons the school AI Norma and requests that it help Mingfei pass the 3E test, and it agrees. The next day, Mingfei confidently enters the test hall because Finger has already given him answers to the test. He told him that they would give them a blank sheet and then play a recording that would give them a soul vision. The test commences and they are given blank question papers while the invigilators leave. The invigilator, Toyama, asks Nono about what she saw during her own 3E test, and she reveals that she saw a shadow take the life of her mother. At the test hall, the other students decide to ignore the test and go into a playful state. Mingfei writes down his answers and notices that only he and a blonde-haired girl are taking the test seriously. While he is writing down his answers, he falls into his usual trance state and sees the little boy. This time, he asks the boy for his name, and he reveals that his name is Lu Mingze, just like his cousin. The boy tells Mingfei that he is in a vision, and the vision shows him what is buried deep in his heart. The boy tells him he is different from the others and he will take his burdens on his behalf. Mingfei wakes up and finds Nono standing in his front. She informs him that he fell asleep for 2 of the 3 hours stipulated for the test. But luckily for him, he wrote down the answers to the test before falling asleep. She adds that he wrote down 9 answers instead of 8, but he won't be allowed to correct it. Nono tells him he doesn't have to worry because from what he wrote, he has surely passed the test. Back in his dormitory, Finger congratulates Mingfei for passing his test and officially welcomes him. Then he proceeds to ask about his course selection list. He asks why he chose Professor Mance's alchemical mechanical design course because the man is always tough on his students. Finger informs him that the professor's classes have been cancelled 2 weeks back because there are reports he is on a mission to find an ancient dragon. In a faraway location, Professor Mance is leading a team to explore the ruins of an underwater city. Yisheng and Aki dress up and dive into the water. In the water, they find the ruins of the city and Yisheng decides to use his void snake, Yangling's skills to explore the city. While they are at this, Mance informs them that a magnitude 5 earthquake is about to hit, but before they can escape, they get caught in the earthquake underwater, and they lose communication with Mance. Luckily, Yisheng uses his void snake ability to communicate with Mance and inform him of their situation. Professor Mance informs the principal about their discovery of the city, but the only issue is that they need a key to gain access. He adds that the city might be the palace of one of the Dragon Kings. The principal then permits him to collect the key, which is a baby with pure dragon blood from his mother. The mother hands them the baby and warns them to be careful, because he is the only key they have left. Mance then changes into his diving kit and jumps into the water. Professor Mance gets to the gate of the ancient bronze city. He uses his Yangling ability to reveal the gate, and then proceeds to use the baby as a key to opening the gate. He then gives Yisheng and Aki instructions to follow, and then he leaves for the boat ship with the baby. On the boat ship, Professor Mance instructs Norma to make a full scan of the city and give them reports of the city. Yisheng reports that the oxygen levels of the city are very low, and Mance urges them to conserve their oxygen levels. They enter a chamber where they see a huge bronze pillar. Yisheng offers to explore the city further, and he urges Aki not to try to save him if he gets into trouble, but she should save herself first. While Yisheng is gone, Aki gets orders to take a picture of the statue and relay it back to the ship, and Norma gives a report of what she sees. Moments later, it is discovered on the ship that there's been an outage on their security system, and Aki's heart is beating faster than normal, and she starts losing consciousness, but Yisheng arrives in time to wake her up and informs her that he found an artifact they can take back to the ship, but it is too heavy to carry, and that there are chances that a baby dragon is sleeping in the city. Suddenly, Yisheng notices that a statue has been following Aki, and he shoots at it. Then the city security system gets activated as a result of the statue. Aki touched, and the layout of the city begins to change. They run for their lives, while dodging all the obstacles that try to stop them in an attempt to make it back to the ship. Yisheng informs Aki that she must have triggered the whole city's security system when she touched the statue, and the baby dragon sensed an invasion, so he locked down the city. Back in Castle College, the alarm goes off and all students ranking above A level are summoned by the professors. Before leaving, Mingfei falls into a trance and sees the little boy. He informs him that there is trouble and that someone will die, but he can use it as an opportunity to get an advantage for himself. He reveals a secret code to unlock all maps and tells him that it will be useful for what is ahead. Finger wakes him up and informs Mingfei that they have been summoned. On the way to the hall, Nono informs Finger that his services won't be needed because only the A-rank students were summoned, and he gets sad and rushes back to his room. In the hall, all students sit in front of their computers and a professor addresses them. The students are briefed that 2 members on a mission are trapped in an ancient city, and they need their help to figure out a way of bypassing the internal structure of the city. They are shown a picture of a statue and asked to interpret it. Mingfei notices the blonde-haired girl from the test and realizes she is an A-rank student. The professors tell them that Aki and Yisheng only have 20 minutes before their oxygen level runs out. Caesar Gattuso informs the professor that it takes humans at least 15 years to translate a dragon text, but they expect them to do it in 20 minutes, which is impossible. The professors then urge them to give it a try. Everyone then gets busy and starts figuring out a way to solve the problem, and the professor, who seems dejected, hopes they will solve the problem before time runs out. Mingfei seems confused about what is going on at first, but then proceeds to configure his computer to begin work. Norma helps set up his dashboard to a game interface he is familiar with. He remembers the cheat code that Lu Mingze gave to him in the dream and then proceeds to input it into the map. Immediately, the code manages to solve the map, and everyone seems surprised by this. After Mingfei solves the map, the interpretation is immediately sent to the ship to assist the trapped Yisheng and Aki in finding their way out. Yisheng informs them on the ship that getting the map interpretation will be hard in their current situation. The duo escapes into the calm part of the underwater city, and Yisheng urges them to show the baby the map. The baby looks through the map, and he makes them realize that the only way to exit the city is to go down and exit through the base. Professor Mance asks about their level of oxygen, and he is happy to discover that they still have 3 minutes of oxygen left, which will be enough to escape with their speed. On the other hand, Yisheng urges Aki to conserve her energy for the escape journey but gets sad and says that the oxygen level won't be enough. She tries telling Yisheng how she feels, but he steps in, kisses her, and assures her they will make it out alive. Moments later, Professor Mance realizes that they have made a mistake. They did not calculate the oxygen and time that will take the duo back up, and they only calculated the oxygen which will take them out of the ruins. Realizing his mistake, he orders that a lifeboat be deployed and the ship be lowered down to the surface of the water to assist in pulling them out of the water. Back at the college, everyone seemed anxious to hear about what was going on and the professors all seemed tense. Mingfei receives a call from his friend who asks about life at his new school and how he has been holding up. He notices that Mingfei is in a bad mood, and he encourages him to hope for the best in every situation and not let anything take him down. Back on the ship, Professor Mance ordered rescuers to be deployed to search for Yisheng and Aki. While he blames himself for the misfortune and is about to give up, the rescuers inform him that they have seen a figure coming out of the water. Aki manages to emerge from the water, and she gives Professor Mance the artifact and tells him that Yisheng sacrificed his life for her so that she can make it back to the ship alive and deliver the artifact. Suddenly, Aki gets pulled back into the water by an unknown creature and Mance cannot do anything about it as he was prevented from jumping into the water by his assistant. They notice a twirling in the water and then followed by Aki's blood. The creature, which turns out to be a water dragon, emerges from the water and proceeds to chase the ship. Professor Mance brings out a rifle and shoots at the monster fish multiple times, but he is unsuccessful in stopping it. After firing several rounds into the water, it was useless. Missiles were then dropped into the water, and to their surprise, the creature ate them. One of the workers on board informs Professor Mance that the missiles are active and he furiously orders them to detonate. The missiles were detonated and a massive explosion hit the water. They all seem relieved that they have destroyed the creature and they proceed on their journey. Professor Mance's assistant tells him that it seems the creature has been eliminated, but she wishes they could have captured it alive. While they are having this conversation, suddenly, the creature emerges from the water and pierces the assistant in the heart and pulls her into the water. Professor Mance is shocked to witness this, and he shoots continuously in the water till he exhausts the rounds in the rifle. The creature did not give up there, as it chased the ship again without giving up. It was at this moment that Professor Mance realized that it was a dragon. The dragon circles around them and makes weird noises. Professor Mance informs his crew that the dragon is laughing at their stupidity. He is informed that there are still live missiles in the dragon, but Professor Mance warns them against detonating it, noting that it will be useless, and it will only release the hot air towards them just like dragon flames. One of the crew members informs him that there is a dam nearby, and Professor Mance orders the ship to move at high speed towards the dam. They plan to get past the dam and use the dam barrier as a shield before detonating the missiles. They begin traveling at high speed and the dragon chases after them, but they manage to make it to the dam in time before the dragon can attack the ship. Professor Mance orders that the dam gate be opened, and they escape through and manage to pin the dragon between the dam gate. They detonate the bomb, and the dragon explodes, but one of its teeth flies off and impales Professor Mance. Back at the college, the students wait anxiously to hear the outcome of the situation. The principal appears on the screen and informs them that the situation has been resolved, and they have collected the important artifact they are after. He then thanks them for their effort and all the students jubilate cheerfully. The principal then proceeded to thank Mingfei for his role in interpreting the map, and all the students applauded him for a job well done. The students were dismissed, and they left for their dormitories. On the way to the dormitory, Chu Zhihang walks up to Mingfei and informs him that he would like him to join the Lionheart Society and take up the president position after him. He adds that he is the only person he can find suitable for the role, and if he ends up choosing the student union, he won't hold any grudge against him. While they are at this, the school bell tolls and Zhihang informs him that they have just lost a member of the school. Zhihang explains to him that the bells tolling and the doves flying around signify that someone is dead, and they are now mourning. The students all pay their last respects. The principal walks up to Professor Mance in his last moments and informs him to hold on till the doctors arrive, but he responds that the doctors can't do anything about his situation. Professor Mance reports all his findings about the dragon and the ancient city to the principal. He urges him not to inform the students about his death, but to tell them he has gone on a new mission. The principal informs him that the dragon base they found has been sent to the college, and they will try to find out what is inside. Professor Mance draws his last breath and urges the principal to find Nono a new mentor. Mingfei gets an email where he finds out that he has been invited to Caesar's dance party, where Caesar would like to have a chat with him. He asks Finger who Caesar is, and he proceeds to tell him that Caesar is the heir to a very wealthy family, and that is why the expectations on him are great. Mingfei feels reluctant to go to the ball because he does not have formal attire and because he does not know how to dance, but Finger urges him to go and suggests he rents a suit from the drama club. Later that day, Finger and Mingfei arrive at the ball, and they cannot help but notice that everyone present has a date except them. Nono arrived, looking beautiful, and rose petals were dropped on the floor to welcome her. She is also personally welcomed by Caesar. At the dance hall, Caesar welcomes everyone and announces to them that he has organized the ball to honor Nono on the occasion of her birthday, and he also urges them to wish her a happy birthday. The event kicks off with a dance and Finger forces Mingfei to join the dance, but while Finger seems to be enjoying the dance, it ends in a disaster for Mingfei. Nono can be seen urging Caesar to go easy on Mingfei so he doesn't join the Lionheart Society. He responds to Nono that Jihong would have thought he would try convincing Mingfei to join just like he did, but he decided to use another method. He stops the dance and proceeds to address everyone present. He tells them that they have to be the best at what they do, and they should be ready to go to war for him. He asks them who they will fight for, and they all respond that it is Caesar. After giving a strong speech, they all applaud him, and Caesar uses the opportunity to invite Mingfei to join the Student Union Society. Mingfei seems confused about the whole situation, but he gives him a chance to think about the offer if he will accept or not before giving him an answer. Following this, Caesar urges Mingfei to request a song and take the dance floor. The blonde-haired girl from the 3E test decides to drop her violin and offers to dance with Mingfei. She requests a song and urges Mingfei to follow her dance steps. The dance begins and Mingfei seems to get the hang of the dance. While dancing, the girl introduces herself to Mingfei and says that her name is Zero. After the beautiful dance, everyone applauds them and the girl leaves and Mingfei decides to get some fresh air outside. Nono notices him and signals him to come over. Mingfei wishes her a happy birthday and asks why she is not present at her birthday party. She responds that she is tired and needs to take a stroll. She asks if Mingfei will go with her and drive her, and he agrees. She requests that Mingfei drive her to the top of the mountain so she can relax. Later, Caesar and everyone else get an alert from Norma that the school is being invaded by a potential Dragon Raja invasion. Norma activates the school defense system, but the intruders destroy the gate and make their way into the school. Norma reports to the professors that the school has been invaded by 13 outsiders. Professor Manstein says that the outsiders are after the dragon vase the principal brought back, which is located at the Alfheim Institute inside the school. Norma reports that they are short on staff, so they have to rely on the students' ability to defend the school. Norma adds that she has instructed Caesar and Jihang to mount important locations in the school. The students can be seen picking up weapons while Norma instructs them to use Frigga bullets. Caesar and his group arm themselves in preparation to face the intruders. On the way to the mountain, Mingfei enters into a trance again, and this time he is scared because being in a trance state means he is asleep in the real world, and he might drive off the mountain. But Lu Mingze shows him the way as he drives. Lu Mingze teases him about confessing his love to Nono, claiming that he has a chance with her, and that is why she has invited him to come with her to the mountain. Mingfei responds that Nono is already with Caesar, and she is his senior. Mingze says it doesn't matter, and he reveals that Nono does not love anyone. He also tells him he will help him by giving him a cheat code called Show Me the Flowers. They get to the mountain, and the duo gets down from the car. Back at the school, one of the invaders reports to their employer that 6 of them are left, and the rest have been apprehended. The employer urges them to find their way to the Alfheim Institute to retrieve the dragon vase. Norma reports to the professors that some of the intruders have been captured and the rest are still somewhere in the school. Professor Manstein is urged to use his snake void powers to locate the rest of the intruders. He responds that to use his powers, the barrier protecting the school must be lifted. Professor Manstein's father gets a call from his son, urging him to lift the barrier, and he agrees to do it as an early birthday gift for his son. Professor Manstein informs his co-workers that his father has agreed to lift the barrier. Up on the mountain, Nono urges Mingfei to sit with her by a pond. Mingfei consoles her about the death of her friends, Yi Sheng and Aki. Nono says she is over their death, and she informs Mingfei that they were not the only ones who lost their lives, and her mentor, Professor Mance, also did. Mingfei learns from Nono that the news of Professor Mance going on a new mission is just a hoax to prevent an uproar from the students. She informs him that Professor Mance once told her that when loses his life, it will be announced that he has gone on a mission, and that way she will figure out he is dead. Nono says that one day when she also loses her life, she will want them to announce that she is on a mission in Iceland, so everyone can move on and slowly forget her. Nono changes the conversation topic to talk about fireflies. She tells him about a mythology in an ancient book that claims that when people die, their souls are taken up a waterfall, and they are escorted by fireflies that guided them home. Back in the school, once the barrier is lifted, the captain of the intruder uses her Yanling powers called Shadow Field to make her and her colleagues invisible, and they find their way to Valhalla, where Caesar is located. Professor Manstein unleashes his void snakes to search the school, so they can apprehend the intruders. Professor Gundarin says it is up to the students to stop the intruders because their main men are not in the school. He asks about the places in school not attended to, and the other professor says they are protected by 10.0 volts of electricity, and they don't need to worry about them. Meanwhile, one of the intruders whose name is 13 enters the school through another route, and he is going solo. He gets instructions from his employer telling him to retrieve the dragon base, and she gives him directions to make his way to the wine cellar. 13 enters the cellar through a chimney. He enters the wine cellar and couldn't help but wonder why the cellar was abandoned. He uses a master key card that has been provided for him to open the door he found. Back at Valhalla, Caesar unleashes his Yanling skills called Kamiitachi. The power enables him to scan everywhere, and he finds the invisible intruders making their way into the church. He calls Zhihang and informs him that his opponents are around and asks if Zhihang would like to make a bet to see who finishes first, but Zhihang disagrees and shrugs it off. At Zhihang's location, Norma instructs everyone to evacuate the library where Zhihang is located. Zhihang urges his assistant to evacuate the building, but she refuses because she doesn't want to leave Zhihang alone. She grudgingly leaves when she hears on the radio that Zhihang should be left alone, after Zhihang tells her the reason why. Back in the church, the intruders realize they have been discovered when the leader's phone rings. The leader introduces herself as Sakatoku Mai, and it turns out she is Aki's younger sister. Caesar offers his condolences, but she shows her displeasure at her sister for her decision to join the school and says that they are not that close. Sakatoku then plays a song on her phone and says that they will begin their fight when the music stops. The music stops before the end, but Caesar quickly figures this out and knocks out the intruders, leaving their leader. She informs Caesar that her job is to distract him so that the deadpan girl can have her way with Zhihang at the library. And this is because the duo armrest is the strongest in the school, and they are the main threat to their group. At the library, the deadpan girl who wears a mask enters, and she is the one to fight Zhihang. The professors who watch all this from a big screen notice that the girl has no weapon, and they wonder if she is strong enough to fight Zhihang without a weapon. Professor Gundarin learns that Zhihang Yanling is a secret, and only his direct supervisors and the principal knows about it. Zhihang activates his Yanling skill called Royal Blaze, which is a very rare, devastating power. All the area around him erupts into a fiery furnace. Professor Gundarin realizes the reason why Zhihang Yanling has been kept a secret, and why everyone else was asked to evacuate the library. He could not help but marvel at such power as he listed out the attributes of the power. To the shock of the professors, the deadpan girl is armed with the same power as Zhihang and she activates it to fight Zhihang. Meanwhile, 13 enters into a private area of the school and he is confronted by one of the numerous personalities of Norma called Eva. He informs the AI that he is trying to find his way to the Alfheim Institute, and the AI informs him that the road that leads there is underwater and it hasn't been used in 35 years. The AI informs him that it can't stop him because of the clearance card he used. They have a little chat, and 13 continues his journey. On his way, 13 receives instructions from his employer, who also informs him that his payment has been increased to 5 million. He gets excited, falls into a reservoir and loses his phone before he can get the last instruction. He then decides to make his way to his target destination. He swims further and finds a door. Before opening the door, he gets a strange feeling, but he hears a voice in his head that calls him brother and he mistakenly opens the door. Back on the mountain, Nono apologizes on behalf of Caesar for making him feel awkward, claiming that he just wanted him to live up to the S-rank expectations. She reveals that she sent the invitation email and it wasn't Caesar. She teases him about the girl he danced with, and then ambushes him by asking him to join the student union. Mingfei imagines that Caesar used her to try convincing him to join the union, but to prevent Mingfei from thinking Caesar used her, she tells him that she wants him to join the union so she can take care of him as a junior brother. Nono says she wants a little brother of her own, and she reveals that she is engaged to Caesar because of a political arrangement that was agreed by their families. Mingfei asks why she didn't save him from the awful first dance, and she responds that she was about to until Caesar stopped her. She urges Mingfei to get her some presents if he is serious about standing up for her when she is in trouble. Nono then changes the topic and reveals that someone gives her a birthday present every year, and she is curious to find out what she will be getting this year. Mingfei remembers the cheat code Mingzhe told him and he decides to activate it. Immediately, the car stereo starts playing and a firework hits the sky revealing a happy birthday Nono text. This lifts Nono's mood and she sheds a tear as she bends down. Mingfei realizes that she is referring to her mother, who buys her a gift on her birthdays. Mingfei asks what happened to her and she reveals that she lost her life. Mingfei promises to be his little brother and Nono, who is excited, offers to always take care of him. Back in the school, after 13 opens the door, he gets pulled by a water current and he finds himself in another chamber. In this chamber, he finds a shark staring at him, but luckily for him, the shark ignores him and swims off without attacking him. He reveals that there is something about him that scares away animals, and he is relieved that it worked this time. He makes his way to the research institute that is hidden under the college and uses the key card with him to open the door and make his way in. Inside the research institute, the dragon vase is preserved in liquid nitrogen and a security system is used to protect it. The principal addresses the researchers and he reveals that for the first time ever they now have an opportunity to study the Dragon King Norton. The researchers interrupt him and say they want to dissect the dragon base immediately. The principal warns against this, claiming that they don't know how dangerous what might be sleeping inside is, and the only thing they know is the time the dragon base was forged. He explains the technique they have used to prevent the dragon embryo from waking up. One of the researchers asks why there is a crack on the vase, and he reveals that Professor Mance poured mercury over it, which corroded it. After careful observation and an MRI scan from Norma, they discover that the vase contains 2 cavities of dragon embryo and one of them is missing. The lead researcher suggests they cut through the vase immediately, but the principal walks up to him with a knife, orders him to evacuate his people and warns him against tampering with the vase, claiming that if the Dragon King wakes up, he will eliminate everyone in the place. They all leave the place, and 13 uses the opportunity to infiltrate the room without any problem. He proceeds to steal the dragon vase, but when he touches it, he sees a vision of a woman calling him brother. He ignores this at first, but when he takes pictures of the vase, he gets the vision again. This makes him paranoid and he abandons his mission and runs out of the room. A bottle fell from his pocket when he jumped away from the vase. His final instructions were to pour the solution inside the bottle on the dragon vase, then take out the content and return to the employer, but he left without doing so because he did not get the instruction when he lost his phone in the water. Moments later, an unknown man enters the room, picks up the bottle, and makes his way to the dragon vase. He poured the contents of the bottle on the vase, then cut his hand and poured his blood on the vase also. Immediately, an energy surge emits from the vase, and the man says his blood and the dragon are in the hands of Nidhogg. Back in the church, Caesar and Sakatoku Mai engage in a tussle, and Caesar repels all her attacks. To make things interesting, Caesar suggests that Sakatoku Mai attacks him 3 times, and if she is successful in eliminating him, she will be considered the winner of the duel. Mai proceeds to attack him the first time, but Caesar blocks her attack. She tells him how impressive his Yanling is, then she attacks the second time, but Caesar counters her attack and reveals he knows she made a fake version of herself with a hairpin. Mai makes the third attack more difficult, but Caesar manages to use his Yanling ability to repel her, and he explains how he did it. While they are in a tussle, Mai proves to be a cheater by pulling out a gun. Just then, a little kid mouths some words in a distance and an explosion hits the church, and they immediately stop their fight to avoid the impact. Caesar tells her that the fight ended in a tie, but she disagrees. They look around and notice melted footsteps printed on the floor, and then when they check out, they also notice that a hole was burned through the wall, and Mai claims that the temperature is equal to that of the sun. Caesar seems surprised that his Yanling ability did not catch a whiff of the person, and he says he heard the elevator sound, and judging from the movement, the elevator came from the basement. Mai wonders what kind of monster they are. Caesar concludes that the reason his Kamiitachi power did not catch a glimpse of the person is because the person has no heartbeat. On the mountain, Mingfei seems confused about how the car starts on its own. Nono suggests they ignore that and make their way back to the college. On their way to the college, Nono listens to Caesar's voicemail, and they realize that the school is under attack by unknown intruders. Mingfei starts panicking, but Nono calms him down and assures him that Chu Zihong and Caesar will get the situation under control and everything will be settled before they arrive back on campus. In the school, Zihang and the deadpan girl engage in fierce combat. The professor watches as the duo fights and notices that they are at a stalemate. One of them says that the deadpan girl seems to have better control of her powers than Zihong. He adds that she is not trying to eliminate him, but rather, she is trying to slow him down. On the other hand, 13 tries to escape from the school on a bike. Professor Gundaren notices him on the screen and immediately orders the students to stop him by shooting at him. The students chase after him and shoot at him, but he rides through their shots without getting hit. Just when he thought he had made it out unhurt, Mingfei ran into him with his car. Mingfei quickly gets down and proceeds to apologize to him, but 13 brings out a knife and threatens to execute him. While Mingfei is begging for his life, 13 gets a look at his face and realizes that it is Mingfei, his best friend. Mingfei also takes a good look at him and he recognizes his friend whose real name is Old Tang. They exchange pleasantries, and Old Tang informs him that he didn't know this was the castle college he told him about. The scene then quickly changes into a fake hostage situation to prevent the students from attacking and allow Old Tang to escape. While they are at this, their plan is interrupted when a little boy with flames and an energy shield all around him jumps on their car from behind and calls him brother. They could not look back because the heat was too much, but they got a good look at him from the rearview mirror. Mingfei quickly drives off. The professor orders the guards and the students to all shoot at the kid with long-range bullets, and he warns them not to get close to the kid. They shoot at him, but the energy shield around him melts the bullets immediately after they come in contact. When they notice that the bullets are useless against him, the professor orders them to use grenades, but this is also useless against the kid. All their efforts to stop the kid prove useless, and it even made the kid angrier. The kid uses his royal blaze power and causes a massive explosion that wipes out everything surrounding him. Zihong and the girl stop their fight immediately after they heard the explosion. They realize there is a greater danger in the school and they decide to split up. One of Zihong's aides informs him of the situation. The deadpan girl tells Zihong that the kid was released by accident. She then urges him to trust her, and he agrees. Professor Manstein calls his father and pleads with him to bring back the barrier, so the kid won't be able to use his Yanling. Professor Manstein's father informs him that it is not possible because the kid is one of the first-generation dragons who is the Dragon King of Bronze and Fire. He adds that the barrier will be useless against his power. Mai calls her employer to inform her about the Dragon Boy attacking the school. The employer seems shocked when she hears that the Dragon Boy has a steel furnace and an energy shield around him and wonders how the boy got released. Zihong speaks with her to confirm the situation. Then she requests that Mai make a video of it and send it to her. After watching the video, she discovers that the boy is not the Dragon King Norton, but his brother Constantine. She informs Mai that she will get back to her with a way of stopping the boy. The kid keeps looking around and calling brother. Nono, Old Tang, and Mingfei can be seen hiding behind some pillars. Mingfei says where they are doesn't seem safe, and he asks Old Tang what his job is. He reveals that he is a hunter. Nono then explains that the hunting organization he works for doesn't hunt animals, but mysterious items that are hard for humans to find. Old Tang reveals that he joined the organization online and got the order to steal the vase, but he did not know he would be infiltrating Mingfei's school. He then shows Mingfei a picture of the vase, and he notices the crack on it, so he figures out that the little kid must have crawled out from it. Nono notices something strange about the little boy, and she concludes that it seems he is looking for one of them. Just then, Finger finds them behind the pillars and lets out a loud scream, which exposes them to Constantine. He laments about how Mingfei dragged him to the dance and exposed him to the danger he is currently in. Constantine makes his way to them, and they quickly make their escape. On their way, they meet Caesar and Mai. Caesar walks up to Nono and asks about her well-being. Mingfei and the rest make their way to the swimming pool. Caesar urges her to go with Mingfei and the rest to the swimming pool to hide. Nono refuses, but he claims that if she is with him he will be nervous and won't be able to perform at his best. Mai tells Caesar she has to find a way to stop the Dragon Boy because she can't allow her teammates to get eliminated. Shortly afterwards, Mai gets a call from her employer and she informs her that the boy can be stopped with non-metal Frigga bullets. She adds that they won't be able to eliminate him, but the bullets will knock him back. Following this, Caesar and Mai load up their guns with the bullets, and Caesar informs the professors about this information. Caesar and Mai shoot at the boy, and the bullets seem effective against him. The other guards and students also load up their weapons and do the same. Mingfei, Old Tang, and Finger find the pool, and they play in it. They immediately recall that they are in danger, and they should be hiding, not playing. They hear footsteps and they decide to fully submerge themselves in the pool. Moments later, Mingfei finds himself in a red pool with steam all over. He swims to the shore, and he believes that he is one of Lu Mingzhe's visions, and he begins to look for him. While he is searching everywhere and calling out his name, he finds Constantine, and he says that he feels the boy looks familiar. Constantine walks up to him and sniffs his body. Mingfei wonders why the boy is emanating heat. Suddenly, the mountains around reveal a pyramid, and he immediately realizes that he is in the city of Bronze and Fire, and that Constantine is the little boy chasing them in the real world. Lu Mingzhe appears out of nowhere at the scene and kicks Constantine away, warning him to leave his brother alone and find his own brother. Mingfei wakes up and finds himself lying by the pool in the school. He calls for his friends but gets no answer. The principal walks up to him and demands he come with him. He takes Mingfei to an Overwatch tower and informs him that they have the Dragon Boy cornered. He brings out a rare alchemic bullet and tells him that it is capable of eliminating a Dragon King. He tells him that he will break down the Dragon King's defenses, and when he sees a rolling eye, he should shoot at it just like he did to Zihong and Caesar on his first day in the school. The principal tells him that he will use his Yanling called Time Zero to slow down everything around and give Mingfei a chance to shoot Constantine. He tells him to believe in himself and he leaves him. Finger questions Old Tang about why he left him in the pool. Old Tang seems anxious, and he asks Finger if he can also hear Constantine calling calling him brother. Moments later, Constantine transforms into a real dragon. The principal walks up to the students and thanks them for their efforts, and he says he will handle the situation from there. He activates his Yanling power, called Time Zero, and everything slows down. He breaks down the dragon's defenses and exposes his rolling eye. He then urges Mingfei to take the shot. Mingfei seems nervous to shoot, but Mingzhe appears behind him and helps him to shoot at the dragon. Following this, the principal announces to the student that the dragon's defenses are down, and they should shoot the dragon with live ammunition. The dragon flies towards Old Tang and shields him from the bullets. With his last breath, the dragon calls him brother and then dies. Old Tang seems confused about what is happening, and he starts running. While running, he gets visions of a long time ago when it was just him and Constantine, and he promised to protect and rule the world together. He stops running and has flashbacks of his time as a dragon. Suddenly, he remembers that Constantine is his twin brother, and he gets sad and angry at the same time. This prompts him to reveal his true identity as the Dragon King, Norton. Moments later, Manstein's father and the principal can be seen having a conversation. He reveals that the Dragon King Norton has revealed himself, and Manstein's father questions why he didn't just execute Old Tang before he transformed and why he waited for him to transform. The principal explains that humans have never been able to eliminate a dragon for thousands of years, but instead, they have been sealing them off. He further explains that all a dragon needs to regenerate itself is a body part which they will seal off somewhere till it grows back into a dragon. He reveals that he is over 100 years old and he doesn't age because of his hybrid blood, so he needs someone to carry on with his legacy. He plans on exterminating the dragons once and for all, and that is why he needs the Dragon King Norton to be blinded by anger. Manstein's father says that the repercussions might bring about multiple humans losing their lives. The principal is pretty confident that Norton's anger will be his grave, and he plans to terminate the 4 Dragon Kings along with Nidhogg. The next day, Mingfei and Finger can be seen talking about the events that happened the previous day. He informs him that the executives are now back in school and the security system is being upgraded. Then he proceeds to tell him about how the secret party was formed years back. Finger asks what society he will be joining, and Mingfei reveals that he will be joining the student union because of his school senior sister Nono. Finger also reveals he is a member of the student union. They hear a knock on their door and Mingfei rushes to open the door. He finds a grumpy old man at the door, who delivers his student union card to him. He reveals that they already made the ID card because Nono was certain he would pick the student union. He informs him that Caesar has called for a meeting, which is happening in 1 hour. The principal thanks Caesar for their effort in stopping the Dragon King. He then reveals to Caesar that he would like to send him and the student union on an expedition to the Bronze City, and he is expected to take Mingfei along because he will be of great help. Caesar thanks him and accepts the mission. After accepting the mission, Caesar invites Mingfei to his office, and he informs him about the expedition they are to go on. Mingfei seems scared and rejects the mission because he knows the chances of survival are slim, so he makes excuses. Caesar tells him that the executives are short on staff, and Mingfei does a quick math to counter his argument. Caesar reveals it is an honor to be chosen to go on the mission as a freshman. He adds that only he and Zero were chosen from the freshman class to represent, and Zero has already accepted the mission. Caesar seems angry that he is not living up to his S-rank expectations, and he informs him to give up his union ID if he won't be accepted to go on the mission. Nono comes in and convinces him that he will take care of him just like a big sister will do. Lin Mingfei grudgingly accepts the mission, and Caesar says they need to get him ready within the next 2 months. For the next 2 months, Mingfei is trained in various survival aspects which include diving, martial arts, endurance, hand-to-hand combat, stamina, shooting, and the rest. After the completion of his training, Mingfei dresses up in preparation for the exploration, and he seems tense. Finger notices this and tries to lift up his spirit. Finger reveals that couples are not allowed to dive together, and the reason Yisheng and Aki dive together is because they never announce their relationship. Mingfei realizes that Caesar and Nono won't be allowed to dive together for the mission. Mingfei reveals that he is scared to go on the mission because there is a high chance he might not make it back alive. He gives Finger his credit card to buy anything he wants in case he doesn't come back. Typical Finger immediately takes the card and starts ordering all kinds of food. Mingfei seems surprised to see Finger behaving that way even when he is not gone yet, but he turns out to be wrong when Finger returns the card. He then encourages him and assures him that everything will be back okay, and he will make it back alive. This sparks a new sense of confidence inside Mingfei. Meanwhile, Norton summons one of his servant dragons to prepare him for the task ahead. Soon afterward, Mingfei, Zero, Nono, and Caesar are all taken to the ship to start their mission. The name of their mission is Operation Bronze. Professor Manstein reveals all the firepower they have in boards and tells them the probability of them encountering a dragon is low. He informs them that the ship is now better armed than before, and no ordinary dragon can attack them. He reveals that they now have an advanced torpedo that can effectively destroy any dragon. Their mission is to infiltrate the Bronze City and destroy it before it falls into Norton's hands. Mingfei asks why they need to destroy the city along with its treasures, but Manstein responds that they have no technology to pull the city to the surface for further research. They believe that Norton will have to go back to the city and transform into a cocoon, so he can emerge with his full strength. Professor Manstein informs them of the diving plan. Nono and Mingfei will be paired, and Caesar and Zero will also be paired. He informs them that Caesar and Zero will take the first dive to find the cocoon and blow it up, but Zero declines and claims she is on her period. Mingfei tries to convince her that it doesn't matter, but she refuses. With the dissatisfaction of Mingfei, the duty falls on him and Nono, and they proceed to gear up. Nono tells him everything he needs to know about the suit, including a consciousness line that will be used to pull them back on board in case they lose consciousness. Mingfei asks if they will encounter any dragons, but Manstein assures him that the dragons are asleep and in their dormant period. He further explains that Norton, when escaped many years ago, was in human form, so he will need to get into a cocoon to get back his full dragon potential. Encountering him is unlikely because he is hibernating. Moments later, the duo dives into the water and they are monitored from the ship. Upon getting to the gate, Mingfei is supposed to pour the pure blood inside a container on the gate's lip. He does this and the gate bites him but lets go when it tastes a good amount of dragon blood in it. He starts screaming, and Nono rushes to help him. He starts crying, but Nono tells him that he only had a minor bite. She urges him to take a look at his hand, and he realizes that it is only a small wound. Nono advises him to wrap it with a small piece of clothing, so it can heal. He does what she advises, but with a large piece of clothing. The gate opens, and the water current pulls them in. Nono passes out, but wakes up to find herself in the city along with Mingfei. She asks Norma to check the quality of air at their location and she reveals that the air is breathable. She urges Mingfei to take off his oxygen supply so they can conserve oxygen. Nono asks Norma why there are no longer strange gases in the city, even after so many years. It has been abandoned, and she reveals that the Dragon King Norton has returned to his palace and has restarted the functionality system of city. Mingfei and Nono continue with their task, and they report back to Professor Manstein that they currently find themselves in an unknown hallway in the city. Norma reports that the air is now breathable because the Dragon King Norton has returned to the city and has reconfigured the city's functionality system. Nono asks where they should place the bombs and Professor Manstein informs them to locate the Dragon King's palace and place them over there. To do this, Professor Manstein asks Mingfei to pour the dye with him into the water and to follow where it flows. They follow the dye and Mingfei cannot hide how scared he is. On their way, Mingfei says the statues around look scary and Nono calls him cowardly. Nono tells him a story that the statues depict witches of a tribe who visited the Bronze City and offered sacrifices of crops, animals, and a beautiful young girl to wake the Dragon King. But he never showed up because he was not satisfied with the sacrifice. They get to a part where the dye no longer moves and they notice it is the same pillar Yishang and Aki got to the last time they were there. After leaving that location, they got to a place where a statue was built in honor of Norton. Mingfei urges Nono to drop the bomb on the location, but she deduces that the Dragon King's palace cannot be in the same place. He receives sacrifices, so she tricks Mingfei into using his oxygen mask and then pushes him into the water. Professor Manstein asks for a situation report, and Nono reports that there is poor visibility around so she can get a good look at the surroundings. Then, they get pulled into a different region of the underwater city which is littered with skeletons of humans who have once waged war against the Dragon King Norton when the city had not been submerged in water but were unsuccessful. Nono asks Mingfei to give her his hand, then she unwraps his injured hand and uses the blood to unlock the hidden gate underneath them. Immediately, they get pulled into another part of the city, and they lose connection with the ship on the surface. This causes them to also lose their consciousness line. Immediately, Professor Manstein and Caesar activate their Yanling in an attempt to track Nono and Mingfei's location. Nono and Mingfei find themselves in an unexplored part of the city. They notice a shabby house in this part of the place, and they decide to enter. It is in this place that Nono notices that their consciousness line has been disconnected. Mingfei starts panicking, but Nono calms him down and says they can reconnect when they leave their current location. Following this, Nono gets a vision and he immediately tells Mingfei to sit directly opposite her so she can use her criminal psychology skills to try and get information. She urges Mingfei not to disturb her while she is in her psychic mode. Nono discovers from the vision that the house once belonged to Norton and he and Constantine once lived there as their palace, and they shared a lot of memories in the palace. Mingfei seems impressed to know that Nono has psychic abilities, and Mingfei learns that she once profiled him when he joined the college. Nono also tells him that the reason she has decided to take care of him is because she made a mistake recruiting him to the school, and she thought Mingfei would only stay a day or two then quit. After this, Nono calculates the time they need to make it out to the surface, and she decides to set the bomb to detonate in 45 minutes. Moments later, Nono finds a lamp and she realizes that it was put on recently. This makes them realize that Norton is in the city, and the duo starts to run away. They went back the way they came and realized that their consciousness line was missing, and someone must have taken it. The city begins to self-destruct, and they realize the only way to escape is to go back to their previous location. They get to the previous location and swim to the bottom of the water. In this place, they find another gate. Before opening the gate, Mingfei reveals he did not write anything in his farewell note because he was pretty confident he would make it back. Nono also reveals that she did the same because no one will miss her if she loses her life on the mission. Mingfei reminds her of Caesar, but she claims he will get other options if she is no more. After this, Mingfei uses his blood to open the gate. Back on the ship, Professor Manstein calculates the time they were gone and concludes that their chances of surviving are low. Caesar loses his calm and says he will dive in with other rescuers, but Professor Manstein cautions and reminds him that their mission is to eliminate the Dragon King, and his decision might jeopardize their mission. Back in the sea, Nono and Mingfei try to find their way out, but they get to a part of the underwater city that seems like they are at a dead end. Nono says they will need a miracle to make it out since they have lost connection to the ship and can't contact Norma. Mingfei seems confused about the situation at first, but then he remembers the cheat code that Lu Mingze gave him for the city map. Mingfei activates the cheat code and Mingze can be seen saying he is glad he called for help. Immediately after the code was activated, Mingfei heard Finger's voice in his head and Mingfei told him to take a look at the Bronze City map so he could use it to give them directions out of the city. Mingfei screams at the top of his voice at Finger to hurry and take a look at the City of Bronze map to help them find a way out. On the ship, Professor Manstein holds his head and screams with pain. He informs his crew that it feels like someone is commandeering his brain. It turns out that Mingfei uses Professor Manstein's brain as a signal relay station to contact the Finger. Finger uses the short time available to try his best to figure out the map, but he has limited computer access because he is an F-level rank student. Caesar urges him to be fast with what he is doing, because Professor Manstein is almost at his limit. Finger then suddenly remembers he has an S-level access with him. He contacts Eva, one of Norma's AI personalities who has been his best buddy, to give him unrestricted access. The AI promises to bring his friend back home to him. Finger uses his unlimited access to analyze the map, and then proceeds to give Mingfei and Nono directions they have to follow out of the underwater city. On the ship, Zero informs Kaser that the water's temperature has risen to about 50 degrees. Zero assumes that the Dragon King is responsible for heating the river up, so he can start hunting them. Zero informs him that the captain of the ship, Professor Mance's brain is overloaded, and he has fallen into a state of obliviousness. Zero suggests that Caesar assumes control of the ship since he is familiar with most of the crew members who happen to be from the student union. Caesar then takes control of the ship, announces he has taken control, and hands out instructions to everyone on board. At the lower deck of the ship, where the torpedoes are loaded, a dragon attacks and destroys everything in that location, and everyone assumes it is Norton. Caesar is given a status report along with the information that the sonar system on board cannot detect the location of the attacking dragon. Caesar orders them to make a run for it, in order to lose the dragon attacking them, but it is futile as the dragon chases after them. During the chase, Zero realizes that it is not Norton chasing them but his dragon servant Samson. They notice Norton on a hill in the distance and Caesar orders the ship to stop. The dragon chasing after them passes them to meet Norton. Norton jumps into the water and he summons the dragon chasing after them to reveal himself. Norton jumps on Samson and thanks him for his services, and to their surprise, Norton hits Samson and eliminates him. Everyone on the ship wonders why Norton will kill his dragon servant. They notice an energy surge emerge out of the water that causes a massive explosion. Out of the flames, Norton and Samson emerge, and he is fused with Samson's body. The crew realizes that Norton did, so he does not have to go to the underground city to get into the cocoon because what he has just done is equivalent to the cocoon. Meanwhile, Mai watches in a distance with a sniper rifle, and she learns that Norton fusing with the dragon will save him time of hatching from a cocoon. She receives instructions that Norton must die, and she should make sure Mingfei survives. Back in the water, Nono and Mingfei try to find their way out of the city by receiving instructions from Finger. He informs them about an exit down their way, but they need to hurry before they get permanently trapped in the city. On their way, they find Yi Sheng's body holding onto a book that he was supposed to take back to the ship. They also notice that Yi Sheng was without an oxygen mask when he died. This brings them to the conclusion that Yi Sheng gave Aki his oxygen to enable her to find her way back to the surface. Finger reminds them about the danger they are in, and Nono wishes Yi Sheng a peaceful afterlife and eternal rest. They continue their escape journey after the warning by Finger. On their way to the exit, Mingfei becomes paranoid because the exit is taking so long to find, while he tells Nono he doesn't want to die. Nono also assumes that Finger might have given them a wrong calculation. At this moment, Mingfei gets a vision and he sees his inner self who scolds him about always depending on someone to save him without him always putting in the work. He advises him to start the habit of moving forward on his own, without the help of others. After the lecture, by his inner body, Mingfei finds the courage to go on. They get to the exit and find the gate, but to open the gate, they need pure dragon blood. Mingfei tried to cut his hand with a knife to reveal his blood, but it was not working. The slab tries to crush them, but Nono pushes back, and she urges Lin Mingfei to be fast about what he is doing. Seeing that the slab is about to crush Nono, Mingfei takes off his gas mask and bites himself on the finger, revealing his blood to the gate. The door unlocks and the two of them are swept out of the city, while Mingfei loses consciousness. Back on the ship, Professor Mance unconsciously reveals that Mingfei and Nono are in danger from the oxygen leakages. Caesar ignores this and orders the ship to move out of their current location. Norton chases after them after seeing this, and the ship drops a rescue bell into the ocean. Underwater, Mingfei sees a vision of people talking down on him. Nono slaps him and wakes him up back to reality. She informs him that he lost his oxygen supply when he took off his gas mask. She reveals that they only have about half of their previous quantity of oxygen. The problem now is how to get back on the ship with the limited amount of oxygen they have. At that same time, Chu Zihang arrives in a chopper and informs Caesar and his crew that he has come to provide them with support. On their way out of the water, Nono takes off her suit and gives it to Mingfei because she is an expert diver and has a better chance of surviving without a suit than Mingfei. They continue their journey out of the water, and at this moment, an explosion hits their location and a poison gas is released. Mingfei hopes Nono is right. Back on the ship, Caesar and the rest try to find a way to stop Norton. Chu Zihang informs them he has come to help them on the mission, and Caesar shows his displeasure at this. Zero tells him to appreciate the support, but he responds that Chu Zihang Yanling's powers will be useless against the Dragon King Norton because stopping fire with fire is impossible. The ship pilot informs them that the ship can no longer fly because of the damage to the engines, and he hopes nothing happens to the watertight compartment because the ship will sink. Caesar asks about the torpedoes, and he is relieved to hear they still have some on board. They suggest they give the torpedo a little tweak to increase the damage impact, so it can be effective against the Dragon King Norton when they attack him with. Zero suggests they get into a range of about 100 meters with Norton before they fire the torpedo, so he won't be able to repel it, and the damage can be great. The torpedo travels at the speed of an airplane, and the damage will be significant. Caesar tells them he will use his Yanling ability to distract the Dragon King Norton so that the torpedo can hit him in an unaware state. On his way out, Zero informs him that the torpedo launches with a very loud noise, like the sound of a space shuttle, and can cause damage to his eardrums when he is in his Yanling state. Caesar thanks her for the heads up and leaves to take on Norton. Caesar covers his eyes to enable him to focus on his hearing abilities better than he activates his Yanling. Zero makes her way to the torpedo compartment to wait for the signal from Caesar so she can fire the torpedo. After activating his Yanling ability, Caesar fires multiple shots at the Dragon King Norton from his rifle, but he repels them all. Caesar shoots at him to distract him from their original plan and also to get him angry so he can focus his attention on Caesar. Zero, before arriving at the tornado compartment, says that getting the Dragon King angry will cloud his reasoning ability, and he won't see their attack coming. She adds that if he can get him angry enough, he will focus all his attention on Caesar, and then the torpedo will have a high chance of hitting him. She arrives at the tornado compartment and they inform Caesar that they are ready. Caesar orders that they drive the ship closer to Norton. As the fight gets fiercer, Caesar briefly lifts his barrier to allow Zihang to distract the Dragon King. Zihang attacks the Dragon King with the Royal Blaze, but the Dragon King, Norton, easily counters his attack with equal force, and this causes a great magnitude of energy surge and explosion to hit the place. The great beam of light, caused by the explosion, causes a momentary blindness, but this has no effect on Caesar and takes off his blindness blindfold and orders Zero to fire the torpedo at the Dragon King. However, Caesar forgets to cover his ears when the torpedo is heading straight to Norton. The Dragon King, Norton, who is completely unaware of the looming danger, gets hit directly in the chest, and the impact sends him crashing into the water as he loses his consciousness and sinks. Zihong informs them that his helicopter is badly damaged and he will be leaving the combat area. Zero walks up to Caesar and they begin communicating in sign language because of the damage the torpedo sound caused to his eardrums. Caesar's ears start to bleed, but Zero says it can be fixed with a minor surgical operation. Caesar tells her he should have listened to her advice, but says that listening won't be a problem because they can both communicate with sign language. Caesar says that he learned sign language because of his mom, who lost her hearing. And Zero says she learned the language to talk to herself when no one wanted to talk to her. Caesar gives her a high five for a job well done. They hope that Nono and Mingfei find the diving bell in time, so they can make it back alive. Back in the water, Nono and Mingfei find the diving bell in the water. Nono, who has been holding her breath all this while, signals Mingfei to give her the respirator so she can get some oxygen. He gives her the snorkel, and after getting some oxygen, they make their way to the diving bell. Mingfei seems relieved that they are finally out of danger. Nono verifies her fingerprint on the diving bell and opens the door for Mingfei, and she pushes him into the diving bell. Mingfei enters, but before she can join him inside, the Dragon King Norton, who seems to be sinking, shows up and impales Nono. Mingfei freezes and is horrified at this sight. Nono, in her dying moment, uses her last strength to lock the diving bell so Mingfei can be safe. Mingfei, who is still horrified by her situation, gets a flashback of their memories together. He thinks about how Nono has always been there for him and wishes he could bring her back because his life would be incomplete without her. Mingfei bursts into uncontrollable tears while thinking of all this. In his state of sorrow, he gets a vision and he finds himself lying on a raft in a mysterious place. He seems confused about what is happening, but he hears Lu Mingzi's voice and realizes it is one of his visions. Mingzi tells him he has decided to see him because he notices he is in a state of sorrow. Mingfei explains his current situation on the outside, but Mingfei tells him to mind his business. He tells him there might still be time to save Nono, who is slowly dying in the real world, and if he can listen to his advice, he is willing to help him. Immediately, Mingfei hears this. He seems curious to hear what he has to say. Mingzi reveals he is not an ordinary person, but before he will reveal what he has to say, he asks Mingfei to tell him the reason why he chose Castle College and has decided to take such a high risk. Mingfei responds that he did it so his parents would think he is a promising child, but in reality, he isn't. He rants about how people have always helped him to achieve his aim and get through things, which has led him to believe he is not a promising child. Mingfei gives a touching story about his life and how Nono has been there for him. Mingzi reveals to him that Nono just pities him because she knows how pathetic he is. Mingfei then bursts into tears and says it hurts to see the person he cares about the most lose her life, and he wishes he could prevent that from happening. Mingzi pities him and then offers to help him bring her back, but on a condition. Mingfei asks what the condition is, and Mingzi explains that the condition is like signing a contract with the devil in which the devil will own the soul of whoever he helps. Mingzi explains that after he helps him defeat the Dragon King Norton and help bring back Nono, he will own his soul. To carry this out, Mingfei reveals that he will give him cheat codes, but each code gives him a right to a quarter of Mingfei's life, so after using 4 codes, he will completely own his life. Mingfei, who will do anything to bring back Nono, agrees. Mingzi seems surprised that Mingfei will agree to the deal. He says that Nono's effect on him has really clouded his reasoning, and now he has officially fallen into his trap. Mingzi then proceeds to give him the Yanling power he needs to bring back Nono. Following this, Mingzi sends him back to the real world, and he wakes up in the diving bell. Immediately, he powers up and dashes toward Nono. He casts a spell to heal Nono, and the dragon's tail disappears. He gives Nono the oxygen mask, ties her to the diving bell, and sends her back to the surface. On the surface, Caesar learns that they have gotten a pull signal from the diving bell. Caesar seems relieved to hear this, and immediately, he orders that they pull her up and the medics should be on standby. After saving Nono, Mingzi tells Mingfei that Nono is safe, and it is time for him to fight Norton. Mingfei reveals that none of the powers he gave him will be useful against Norton. Mingzi then reveals that to defeat the Dragon King, Norton, he will need to access the box they got from Yi Sheng's body. The box contains 7 deadly weapons, which were crafted a long time ago by the Dragon King Norton himself, and each weapon has its significance which will help him defeat the Dragon King. Before the fight begins, Mingzi tells Mingfei he needs to block Norton's speech so he won't be able to conjure up any attack, and he does this with the help of one of the powers Mingzi gave him. Following this, Mingfei summons the box, and the weapons in it get activated. From the box, he chose 2 of the weapons which are purple and yellow. Mingfei informs him that he has just chosen the worst 2 of the 7 deadly weapons, but he has to make do with it. Mingfei charges at Norton, and he attacks him with rage. The weapons transform in his hand, and Mingfei informs him that the weapons have just revealed their true form. Mingfei attacks the Dragon King and slashes off a part of its mouth. The Dragon King seems to prove too tough for Mingfei, but Mingzhe notices it is because Mingfei has no foothold in the water, so he uses his power to stop that from happening, so he can move freely. The fight continues and Mingfei slashes the Dragon King Norton with rage. As the fight continues between the Dragon King Norton and Mingfei, the impact can be felt in the ship, and they all seem surprised because they thought the Dragon King was already dead. Norton realizes that Mingfei is getting the better of him, so he decides to run into hiding in the abyss to re-strategize. Mingfei falls into a sad mood and remembers the people who are likely to miss him if he dies. Mingzhe then pulls him into the vision world and gives him a pep talk. He tells him that dragons don't get tired, so he must not relent, but seize the opportunity to slay the dragon. Mingfei tells him that he can't give up yet, so Mingzhe reveals that the spell blocking the Dragon King's Yanling powers is slowly running out of time, so he needs to act fast. To eliminate the Dragon King, Mingzhe reveals that the Norton body on the head of the dragon is the weak point. After receiving words of encouragement from Mingzhe, Mingfei activates his Yangling, which increases his strength and speed. He tries to locate Norton with the help of his Yangling, but everything seems amplified. His Yangling is then accompanied by Mingzhe's Yangling, and he is able to locate Norton in his hideout. Immediately, he launches a devastating attack at Norton and slashes through his body. When that does not seem to work, he charges at Norton's body on the dragon's head, but he abruptly stops the attack when he realizes that Norton is his best friend Old Tang. Norton notices that Mingfei has frozen up, and he uses this opportunity to grab him by the neck and tries choking him to death. Mingzhe could not help but comment about how soft-hearted Mingfei was, so he decided to step in. He hands Mingfei one of the deadly weapons, which happens to be a dagger, and he pushes it inside Norton's body. As Mingfei floats back to the surface, he watches as Norton's body slowly turns into stone, and he recalls his memories with Old Tang and how he was there for him even when he was at his lowest. Mingfei sheds uncontrollable tears as he continues to make his ascent towards the surface. Back on the ship, everyone gathers around Nono. The doctor assures Caesar he has nothing to worry about because Nono's vitals are all fine. To the relief of everyone, Nono wakes up and they all clap for her. Zero realizes that Mingfei is still missing, and she notices him at a distance, so she swims to him to help him, and she drags him back to the ship. Mai, who has been waiting to execute her mission, reports to her employer that Mingfei survived as she wanted. At this moment, she notices the Dragon King Norton, whose body has already transformed into stones and is now weak and dying, trying to make his escape. She loads up her rifle with the rare alchemic bullet given to her, and she shoots at Norton, and this eliminates him immediately. She reports back to her employer that the job is complete, and she gets rid of her rifle. On the ship, Zero learns that Chu Zihang has landed at the nearest airport and is healing there. Later on, Mingfei can be seen having tea with the principal. The principal commends him for having a perfect score in his papers and practicals, noting that only a few people have achieved that in the history of the school. However, the principal informs him that he has to write a thesis, and for this, he suggests that he write about the twin Dragon Kings created by the Black Dragon Emperor Nidhogg. The principal reveals that Nidhogg created the 4 Dragon Kings as twins, which makes them 8 in total. He adds that the Dragon Kings appear in human form to get empathy from humans. The principal then passes him a picture. He opens the picture and he sees Old Tang in his 20s, with his friends. The principal reveals Old Tang is a Dragon King who has been living a quiet life after his adoptive parents passed away and even donates his money to orphanages. The principal then consoles him about Old Tang, claiming that even without the death of Constantine, Old Tang was still going to reveal himself as the Dragon King Norton and rain terror on the world if he had not been stopped. Mingfei asks why they have decided to keep dragons a secret from the outside world, and the principal responds that getting to know such will disrupt the way of life of humans and the knowledge will shake humans' understanding of the world. The principal passes him a letter, and he discovers that it is a letter from his parents. His mother writes about how proud of him they are in making the mission a success, and how they are preparing for his graduation when he is 22 years of age. This letter brings him to tears. After reading the letter, the principal asks about their encounter with Norton, noting that how Nono survived is a miracle. He asks about how it happened, but Mingfei recalls that Mingzhe warns him not to tell anybody about the encounter, so he refuses to say anything. The principal says he understands and allows him to leave. At the dormitory, Mingfei tells Finger about what he posted about him on the school's school's news website. While they were arguing about this, they heard a knock on their door, and it was Caesar. He asks them for salt to add to what he is cooking, and Finger gives him. Finger reveals that Caesar and Chu Zihang are now roommates, and they have moved to the room opposite them. He also tells him that Nono and Zihang's assistant have also moved to the room beside them. Following this, Nono walks up to him and offers him chocolate. She informs Finger that there is more in the room, and he hurriedly leaves to go get some. Nono thanks Mingfei for what he did when they were underwater. She says that she recalls him calling out to her while she was losing consciousness, but because she remembered he made a promise to protect him, that is why she decided to regain her consciousness. It turns out, Nono did not remember what happened. After this, someone walks up to Mingfei and delivers a package to him that was sent from abroad. He enters his room and opens the package. He is surprised to find a phone, and he realizes that it was sent by Mingzi so he can contact him easily without dragging him to the Vision Land and to monitor him, so he does not fall back on their deal. Later on, the principal goes through Mingfei's 3E test, and he finds in one of the papers a picture that Mingfei drew of him sitting on a window with Mingzi. The principal recognizes Mingzi, but he burns the letter. After that, he welcomes Mingfei to the academy once again.